Hello, everyone. For those watching this, you will notice a little out of sync audio and video due to poor internet connection, but it is not too bad.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of We Should Have Recorded That with Phil and
Adam, and this week I'm so excited. I can't wait to introduce her. The one, the only Cailten Barron.
yes, yes. Hello, Caitlin.
WSRTwPA.
Okay.
I love that.
We
Okay,
might have
think
a
I
new
can do that.
co-host, Phil.
Yeah, I like that. That sounds
Little
nice.
did you know, Caitlin, that we're auditioning you for co-host.
I'm ready. I'm ready for this.
You ready?
Yes. Okay. Before we introduce Caitlin, though, Phil has some business to get out of the way.
I do have some big business. Thank you to everyone who is liking and subscribing. We're actually slowly but surely gaining new followers on Facebook and Instagram and things, and so really nice. And I hope you all will engage us in conversation as we're doing here. And if you would like to do that, you can find us by WSRTwPA on Facebook.
That's WSRTwPA.
Yes.
Poetry.
Yes. Add on Facebook and Instagram, and you can also find us on YouTube by the title of the show. We should have recorded that. We're feeling out. So now we should handle some listener comments, and we actually forgot. The last time we recorded, we didn't have an episode last week, but the last time we recorded, we forgot a listener comment.
Oh, we can't do that.
We can't. We shouldn't.
Yeah, we beg for listener comments
We do.
so much that, how negligent of us.
It was from our who we have dubbed as our number one fan, and I'm actually trying to get to it now. I don't want to miss it again. Give me 1 second.
Where is it on Apple Podcasts?
No, it was on Facebook. She commented on our Facebook page, and so Michelle Savaggio says, 3 of my favorite people on the planet talking about one of my favorite topics on the planet equals one of the best episodes on the planet.
Thank
Hashtag.
you.
She even asked hashtag proud teacher's pet.
Yes. Michelle Salvaggio, you take the cake. You
Yes.
are our reigning number one fan.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I don't think we have any more comments. Do you have any comments, Adam?
No, so I'll just say send those comments our way. And now, without further ado, let me introduce the one, the only Cailten Barron. Caitlin, welcome to the show.
Hey guys, it's so good to be here.
All right, before we
Nice
get
to
into
have
our
you.
conversation, I will tell our audience a little bit about Caitlin. I met Caitlin in April of 2015. I was finishing up my doctorate, and she was a sophomore. When I interviewed at Delta State, Caitlin, were you a sophomore?
I was in my second year of music. I'll say that.
So sure, let's say I'm gonna call you a sophomore, and I interviewed for a job at Delta State University in Cleveland, Mississippi. Caitlin was a student there. I got the job. I took the job, and Caitlin became my student. And Caitlin is just. She was a stellar student. We not only shared the student-teacher relationship, but also we shared the relationship of being siblings in Christ, and my final year at Delta State, Cailten was the vice president of the chorale. She was like just the most capable leader. Phil, you were there. I mean,
Yes.
wasn't she an inspiration just with how she motivated people to do tasks, but always in just the most respectful kind, never demeaning, never insulting, always encouraging way.
Yes, I would definitely agree with that.
Unless they really, really needed some discipline, and then she wasn't afraid to apply that either.
Southern charm.
Yes, but I remember so well our conversations in my office at Delta State, with Cailten and Phil. You were there, and Chandler Smith, and just so many other great people who I miss very much. Fast forward to Cailten. When did I then see you? You then I came to Rochester. You finished up your student teaching the semester after I left, right?
Student teaching was in 2018.
Oh, okay. So you were there another year after I was.
Yeah.
And then you student taught with another of the most awesome people in the world, J. Reese Norris. And then we'll get a little bit into your journey out of music education and into other things during the show. But Cailten and I had the opportunity to reconnect in Phil, when did we go to France?
Must have been 2019.
Was that true? Okay. So
Yes.
2019, just last year. I hadn't realized it was that recently. So
Yep.
we went to France. Cailten, I think I told you this, right? That I had lived in Rochester for, I guess, 2 years at that point. But I had not availed myself of Toronto, even though it's only a 3-hour drive away. And I remember when we took the Roberts Chorale to France, and we flew out of Toronto. It's the nearest large international airport to Rochester. And I remember 3 hours later being in Toronto and being like, what? There's like a major city here. Why did I not know this? Why did I not come before? And so after we returned from France, I planned to come explore Toronto. And Cailten was my first tour guide. And so oh man, maybe Phil, we can post a picture in our episode notes of Cailten and me in Nathan Phillips Square.
We can definitely do that, I think.
You think?
If people want to see that.
Yeah, of course they do. Who doesn't want to see us next to the Toronto sign? So anyway, we will get into your journey, Cailten, and what you're doing in Toronto as we continue this conversation. But thank you for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you guys.
So, Cailten, what have you been up to since finishing college?
Well, I now live in Canada, so there's that.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land.
You know, fun fact, I don't know if I told you this or not, but I sang the Canadian National Anthem at a Canada Day festival.
Because you know French diction.
Yes, and that's the reason why I
Yes.
was able to do it, was because everything I learned in music, it taught me how to say that. Still don't know it in English, but I do know it in French.
Yes.
So, positive.
That's perfect. All right. Cailten, how did you get to Canada? And don't say I flew.
Well, I definitely didn't walk. So how I got here,
Wait, pause just a second.
okay.
Phil, am I right that Cailten is our first international guest?
Yes, I believe so. Yes, she is.
Cailten. Oh, you are
I'm paving the way. for so
You
much more.
are. You're a trendsetter. Okay, I'm so sorry to interrupt. I tend to do that a lot though, with a ton of off-task statements. So
Okay, but
forgive
I
me.
also feel like this episode is going to be more of the rabbit trails, just saying weird things, and I'm okay with that.
It's the kind of episode people will really love. So structured,
Right.
organized, and focused.
Yes, everyone, welcome to WSRTwPA.
Yes!
All right, let's jump in.
Let's do it.
So, I had an awesome experience through music. I knew that music was, after my first 2 years of university, I knew that music was what I wanted to pursue my degree in and learn more about. And so, but through those years, the Lord, I told you guys a little bit about this, but the Lord just placed different ways to serve on my heart through the years, like through doing summer missions and just loving people in Mississippi. And so I got the opportunity in 2017 to join a team to come up to Canada. And we worked with a sports organization here in the Toronto area and fell in love with it because, like what you said, Toronto is a huge city. And Toronto is a hub for so many different cultures.
Yes. Oh.
I love that part.
It's such an amazing multicultural city. Like the world meets in Toronto.
Yes. And so thinking about it in that light, coming from Mississippi where there isn't that much diversity, I loved being here because wherever I looked, there wasn't somebody just like me. There was so many different things, so many different cultures to learn. And honestly, that was a huge selling point when I came to this area, was just learning about different people, getting outside of my own bubble and learning about the world. And on top of that, when we get to heaven, heaven's not going to be just me, just people that look like me. It's going to be people of all nations and tongues and tribes. And so that's what I wanted.
Amen.
I want to live my life down here, how heaven is going to live, or how heaven is going to be when we get there. So I knew that I wanted to move to Canada eventually. But I had this amazing teaching job here in Mississippi. And it really was. Like, I went to this school when I was little. It's teaching 4th and 5th graders music. I went to that school when I was little. It was a great teaching opportunity. And so I was like, okay, I don't know when I'm coming back to Canada, but for right now, Lord, I know that you have me here. But I went back and volunteered here that summer before I was supposed to actually start teaching. And through different people, different circumstances, different scripture that I was reading, he always kept putting this thought in my mind. It's going to be sooner than you think. And at the end of that summer, I remember just like on the plane going back to Mississippi, back to my teaching job. I remember talking to this man on the plane, and our conversation was about other things, but the Lord kept saying, I've provided for you in your life, and you need to step out in faith now and do it. And you need to come back to Canada. And so I knew without a shadow of a doubt that the Lord was calling me to step out in faith and come to Canada. So that's how I'm here. I was at home for a month and came back here to Canada. So that's kind of how I got here. And so now I work with the organization that I volunteered for. And it's exciting. I love it.
Oh, amazing. What exactly do you do for the organization?
That's a great question. So I work for Fellowship of Christian Athletes Canada, so FCA. It's a sports organization. So I love sports, and so it was a really cool way to bridge that. So what we do is we partner with churches to put on sports camps and sport leagues, and it's basically a tool for churches to use to love on their community, share the gospel, and bridge that cultural divide. Because our camps have so many different religious backgrounds, cultural differences, and so we help equip the churches to minister to a multitude of different backgrounds of what the kids are coming to. So we help equip the churches in that way. So I am the camps director. Yeah, so I'm the camps director, and so we have March break camps and summer camps, and now that COVID has happened, we have increased our online presence. So now we have virtual camps for kids as well. So it's exciting.
Oh, wow. How do virtual camps work?
So instead of getting to do sports together, we concentrate on just movement. Because when we were in the house, when it was at the peak of COVID season, we just needed movement. And so what we did was we all got together. We had a little dance party online. We played different games like Kahoot. We played tons of Kahoots. We played scavenger hunts, things like that. And then we did workouts. And then we had a Bible story time. And so we had different churches recorded the Bible story. Some churches acted it out. So it was really cool getting to see the different characters. And then we had online where they could do stuff during the day. So they didn't stay in front of the screen the whole time. We met together in the morning, and then we finished at the end of the day at 3:00. And then they had activities to do during the day on their own, like crafts and stuff like that. So it was pretty cool.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's very resourceful in a season when you're not able to do it the way that you always have.
Yeah, exactly. And honestly, that way there wasn't as many kids that signed up for virtual, because that's pretty tough. You have to have access to technology and Wi-Fi and all that kind of stuff. So, but the kids that we did have online, it was so much more intentional with them. We got to learn more about their lives. We got to see their pets and their home. And so the Lord showed us how, even in a pandemic, how he was working in the lives of these kids. So it was a blessing to be able to see.
Amazing. Tell us a little bit about the backgrounds of the kids who you work with.
Yeah, so we have a lot of refugees from different countries, and so most of the background they are from Islam or Hinduism. We have some Sikh kids. There's tons. There's people who don't believe in anything, Christians, all that kind of stuff. And then we have Canadian kids, which honestly, there is a part of Canada that's almost just like Mississippi. It's so weird to see, but it's like that.
Yes.
that same kind of. So when I found that little group of Canadians, I was like, wow, this is like home.
Now, Kayla, what do you mean that it's just like Mississippi? How so? And if that's just going to be too offensive.
Well, I don't mean this offensive, because this is where I grew up. This is where I'm from. And so I don't mean offense by this by any means. But it's that country. Place, it's that very country. The houses don't look like what they look like in Mississauga here, because all the houses here look the exact same. They're smushed together. They're huge houses. But when you get to this part of Canada, they look a little bit more like a suburb. you get stuck behind a tractor, that kind of stuff.
Yes.
That reminds me of Mississippi.
Yeah. Yeah. There are indeed many, many rural parts of Canada, aren't there?
Yes, there are. Honestly, most of Canada is uncitied. I don't know how to say that, but
Yes.
like most of it's just land.
Yeah.
So you can
Two
literally
thirds of
drive
the
for
Canadian
miles. And
population. Oh, right.
yeah, exactly. Well,
I was just going to
also, like
say
you don't have
that
to.
2/3.
Mm,
Oh, I'm sorry. We are experiencing some lag issues.
Yeah.
Caitlin, I'm going to let you say it.
well, yes, there are 2/3 of the or 2/3 of Canada are populated or non-populated. See, you should have said it. I messed up too much.
Two thirds
But
of the Canadian population lives within 60 miles of the U.S. border.
yes, that was beautiful.
Got it
That
out.
was a beautiful job. Yeah.
Okay, back to you.
Yes. So that, but honestly, what I wanted to say too was, you mentioned how I transitioned out of. Why are you laughing like that? Oh, okay. I transitioned out of music, but I really didn't. Um, if you can't see, Adam is still laughing at me
I am
on this
doing no such
podcast.
thing. I am not laughing at you. I am enjoying our conversation. If I'm laughing with you, Caitlin.
Gotcha.
Yes.
But I didn't stop
Go ahead,
music.
Caitlin.
Just so you know, the Lord has provided ways to still use music, and by that I mean, even though I am not getting paid to teach music, I've gotten to teach 0 to 5-year-olds, which I don't know why they add zero in there, but 0 to 5-year-olds music for a homeschool co-op. So when they're still in the womb, they're learning
Right.
they're learning music theory.
Yes.
Or I mean, they haven't had their first birthday, so I guess they're considered zero. So
It kind of depends on what part of the country, or yeah, the part of the world that you're in, whether you're 0 or 1. But
Ah.
um, but yeah, so I've gotten to do that, which was so much fun. Very different from what I was doing in the States with middle schoolers. Was the youngest that I dealt with in the States. Um, and I've gotten to do private voice lessons for adults. And I'm starting this fall. I'm really excited because you know how on the resumes they tell you, even if you don't teach, do something in music that shows that you've been learning. And man, the Lord has been growing me, kept growing me in music, because I'm really excited. This fall, I'm going to be the music teacher for a family that homeschools. So they
Wow.
have
That's awesome.
four different kids from ages 4 to 11, and I'm gonna get to
Wow.
teach them music. So I'm super excited about that. So the Lord is still pushing me in the music realm.
Yes. Yes. Tell our audience about how your background in music opened the door for you to sing at a high profile event.
Yes. Well, I'm on the committee for this festival, which is it's a pretty big festival in Mississauga for Canada Day, and because I'm working with with FCA. We basically do the whole kids section of this festival, and so I was on the committee, and they were looking for someone that could sing the national anthem in French, and they couldn't find anybody. And so I just happened to talk to the event planner, and I said, I am trained in music, and I can do this. Like this is in my toolbox for me to be able to do. And I said I would be more than
Yeah.
happy to to work on this, to learn it, and then basically audition for this because they needed somebody. They didn't have anybody. And so she looked at me like, okay, there's this American that wants to sing the Canadian national anthem. She says she knows French, but can we believe her? I don't know. So, so I did. I took it home. I did the IPA for it. I practiced it. Yeah, I spent days working on this. I sent her a recording, and she looked at me like, what is this? Because she said, I've never heard someone that isn't a fluent Canadian French speaker be able to pronounce the words like you can. And I owe that to music. I owe that to my training.
Yes.
Because I took the basic foundation of what I was taught, and I just listened to the different Canadian inflections of the French. And so she worked with me on a couple of things, and then she presented it to the committee, but didn't tell anybody that it was me. They just heard the recording, and they said, yes, that's her. And so I got up on the stage during the event, and all of the people that were in the committee that had put this thing together had no clue why I was walking up there. Because I'm just one of the committee members. And so I walk up there, and they say my name, and I looked at their faces, and they were just like, what? And the feeling of an American being able to come up there and some other people said this. I'm not just saying this about me, okay? So I'm not trying to be like prideful in this. But some other people were saying for an American to come up and do it so well shows that you took pride in your work. And so that made me feel good. That all the training that I was able to do in music, it touched people's hearts, that because I feel like we have this whole thing where Americans think one thing about Canadians, their stereotypes, and then Canadians have the stereotype about Americans. And so it was a cool way to bridge and get over stereotypes and just be able to be excited. So.
Yes. So, Cailten, I mean, I have spent a lot of time in Canada, and I have Canadian friends. I love the country of Canada. But I definitely also have experienced that Canadians have stereotypes about Americans. Maybe you are the best equipped of us to tell the audience how the typical Canadian views their neighbors from down the street.
Wow, that is a big question. So first of all, just like anything else, there are people that everybody believes something different. Okay, you can't categorize Canadians as a whole because that's a very big population. But from what I have heard, there's not a lot of positive things especially in this time. And I think if you're listening to this, you know those thoughts that might be circulating around COVID and around the election. There are just things that, from an outside point of view, do not make sense at all. And they might not make sense in America either. But for Americans that are living in the U.S., it's there. You're surrounded by it. And so it's kind of like this. You can't get out of the decision either way. You can't get out of the pandemic that's happening. And so for other people, it doesn't matter if it's Canadians or other people, when you're looking in on a situation, you can see different flaws that you can't see when you're in it. And so for Canadians, I think a lot of them are frustrated because it's like America's stepchild. That's how Americans treat Canadians. Like it's just, you know, I don't know, North America, but we're American. um, but honestly, I can tell you this though. Canadians love Black Friday sales in the US. They love getting to vacation in Florida. It's not all bad.
I can attest to that.
Yes. There's so many vacation homes in the US. Um, and a negative though is the fact that when Canadians come to the US, that their currency just seems to disintegrate because the exchange rate is so bad. But if you're an American and you're listening to this, if you go to Canada, I'm telling you, you can walk in with $100 and you leave with $150. It's awesome for a Canadian. It's not that bad.
Right now
but
it's only 133.
Yeah, it's changing.
It is. Now, you're telling Americans to visit you, but are we able?
Not at this point. Sadly,
Why
it's still
not?
closed. Because so the border's still closed in Canada because we want to stay safe.
From the filthy Americans? From the filthy, disease-ridden Americans?
I'm not gonna use that wordage. You can use that wordage. I'm not.
But
no,
is that what people think?
There are different health precautions that Canadians are taking that Americans are not. And so
like what?
So for one, we're still wearing our masks when we do things. That's a big thing. I feel like you're trying to pull these things out.
I just feel like the country on earth that has done the worst containing the coronavirus has something to learn. So if you can tell us what we can do to get this under control, all 12 people who listen to us will know they need to wear their mask. Okay, what else?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's the exact same things as what the health professionals are saying. Wear your mask, wash your hands.
Listening to professionals?
Yes.
What?
I think
we just supposed...
I think one of the biggest... You go ahead.
This is making too much sense, Cailten. We're supposed to listen to the health professionals and not just make up our own rules based on what we want to do?
Yes. Absolutely.
This is revolutionary to me.
I think one of the biggest differences that I've seen in this, though, other than the news where they show people at the beach and they show people at, clubs and stuff like that, I think personally what I've seen the biggest difference between Canada and the U.S. and Canada's not all perfect. We're about to experience our second wave as well, and we're trying to shut down more so we don't get worse. But the biggest difference between the U.S. and Canada that I've seen lately is the way that churches have gotten back together. And when I say that, is churches that I've heard in the States, that they are going full back. They're just going for it. No social distancing. People aren't going to say wear your masks. They're just going for it, going back to normal. And one thing I love about the church that I attend is our church usually meets in a movie theater. So that's been kind of difficult because we don't have our own building. We have to go with what the movie theater states. But we've gotten to go back into physical gatherings. But there was a plan involved, and there were rules. So we were sent videos and lists of how we were going to go back in a safe manner. And so obviously the space only holds so many people, so we have to register to make sure that we don't go over capacity. There are the social distancing lines. We are screened before we go in. We wear our masks during church. There's Germex. We are seated by the ushers, and we're seated 6 feet apart in the chairs, and they escort us out when it's over. All these different things, and we don't linger. We just go out to the parking lot and we social distance talk. All these things, and it makes me feel proud. Like we are still a body of believers. We're still meeting together, but we also recognize that there is a pandemic. People are getting sick. People are dying. But that shouldn't stop the church, the body of believers, the people, not the building. That shouldn't stop the church from fellowshipping together. Whether that looks like social distance meeting or doing it online and doing small groups via Zoom and having community that way. I have loved getting to be a part of this and seeing how the leadership has led, or how God has led the leadership in and how we need to reassemble into church. Because I feel safe. I feel safe, and I feel like this is what we're supposed to do. And that's not what I've seen in a lot of U.S. churches. And so that makes me sad that people still are focusing that the building is what makes up the church. So like the church, when Paul was going to these different churches, they were house churches. They weren't meeting in this big building and having the traditional, altar call and all these things. They weren't doing that all the time. They were meeting in houses. Right. And so how it physically looks can change, but what are the key basics of what a church does and what we provide for the members and the community, and keeping that ongoing and having to tweak a little things because a lot of things we had to do virtual, but still meeting the criteria of the biblical church, but doing it safe and meeting those what the government is saying. Not saying that the government is trying to stop churches meeting or not. The government's never going to stop the assembly of believers, and I don't mean physically. I mean in general. Like just because we couldn't go to church doesn't mean that the government stopped our church from meeting and our church from serving and loving on people and providing for people in the ways that they needed. So I think I'm gonna get off my soapbox on that a little bit, but I think that's one of the main differences that I've seen America and Canada. And not everybody's perfect. Obviously, there are still U.S. churches that are doing well, and there are Canadian churches that are not doing as well. So it's not as a whole, but just in my personal life, what I've seen.
That's so good.
Yeah, I think it's been the idea of being thoughtful, and what does it mean to be thoughtful right now? I mean, it's important. It's very important, but also meeting the needs of the people. So it's very good to hear that they're doing that in Canada, and that some places here are doing that as well. So yeah.
It's about caring for your brother and sister, right?
Yeah. Exactly. And that's one thing that, like, when we went online, my church, we had the virtual small groups. And so we watched the service, the live stream service, and then we met immediately on our Zoom calls with our small groups. And we would talk about the service, we would talk about the scripture, and then we would pray for each other. We'd ask each other what we needed. We would care for each other in our small groups. So if somebody needed something, they would order groceries, or they would go drop groceries off and clean them, like do everything they could to help. Or there was also a place online where if you needed help or if you could provide help, there was a form that you could fill out, and you were matched up with someone who wanted to help, or somebody who needed help. They were matched up with someone who could help. And so it's just
great.
beautiful seeing the body of believers work that way.
Yes, truly. Cailten, before we transition into our final segments, what you mentioned the sort of the multicultural meeting roads of Toronto as one of the things that drew you there. Maybe that's your favorite thing about living in Mississauga, or maybe it's something else. What is your favorite thing about being there?
I think there's two things. So one is a very general thing. The first thing is very general. I love what the Lord has taught me here. And I know that's not just one thing, but I love the fact that he used this place to show me hurting people, to show me things about myself, like pride or selfishness, or like how to strengthen my faith. That he took this place and he broke me down in it. And I think that was the first summer too. And so being here and being able to see the different places that I have been through, because I came here, the first time I came here was in 2017, and being able to see the different places that I have been over these 3 years, and seeing how God has worked in this place out of Canada. And I might not be here forever. It might just be 5 years. It might be a lifetime. Who knows? But it's beautiful because the Lord has taught me so much in this area about himself, his people, and about myself. So, and then the other thing that is my favorite is the weather. That it's not Mississippi. It's like Mississippi weather. It's not as humid. That we actually get snow and fall. So those are my two favorite things.
I love it. Cailten, anything else that you want to say before we begin wrapping up?
I do. I want to say this. So I told you guys in my email that I had taken notes throughout all of the episodes that I listened to. And there are two that I want to point out. Okay, 'cause there's a lot of really funny things. But the first one is I absolutely love when Phil was introducing the segment and you just went, Adam! And it was early. It was hilarious. And so I think that you should never say your name on beat ever. Because it's awesome.
Okay.
It was great.
Phil,
and then this is
can we practice right now?
What are we practicing?
Saying the name of the podcast.
You want to practice it right now?
Yes, I do.
Okay. We should have recorded that with Phil
Adam!
and okay.
Cailten!
Right. And Cailten, yes.
Yes! Oh, we're certain pack.
Yes.
Yes. And then this is the serious one. In episode 6, the quote that got me was, if it doesn't inspire you to give a 100%, do something else. I love that. And that has caused me to reflect on the things that I should be giving 100% to, and I'm not. But I should be, so give 100%. Because the Lord has brought me to this place, And if I'm not going to give my 100% for something that he has called me to do, then might as well be digging ditches. I don't know. So
Yes.
that's probably not what the thing was, but that's how it hit me in there. So I'm grateful for
Amen.
that quote from one of the episodes.
Thank you, Cailten. Oh,
Yes.
we are so grateful to have had you on our show.
Yes, we are.
Yeah. So,
I'm
Cailten,
so
as
grateful
you
to be
know,
here.
yeah, as a loyal WSRTwPA listener, you know that we end with 2 recurring segments. Are you willing to play along?
I am locked and loaded. I'm ready.
All right. Well then, Cailten, locked and loaded. What current event is on your mind for Current Events Corner?
Okay, so in the sports realm, I have to say something with sports because that's what I do. I'm super excited because I heard on the news that Nick Nurse, the head coach for the Toronto Raptors basketball, for anybody who doesn't know, um, mentioned mentioned that Scotiabank Arena is going to be opening sometime this week. I haven't heard a particular date. Sometime this week for U.S. citizens living in Toronto, that they're going to be able to register to vote here at Scotiabank Arena. So yeah,
Wow.
so there's a lot of arenas in the states. Have opened up for people to vote, have become voting centers. And so since we're in Canada, they can't do that. Scotiabank Arena wants to still help in any way that they can. And so what they can do is open the arena for voter registrations. And so that's what they're doing. Sometime this week, they're going to be opening it up for people. And so I'm excited. That is awesome. That's an awesome way for the Raptors to jump on board and help north of the border.
Yeah. That's so cool. Go Raptors.
Yeah, it is cool. Are you registered? Are you voting? Ready to vote?
I am going to vote. I still need to register because since I've moved to Canada, I have to re-register. So I have to do that. The time is dwindling for absentee voting,
Yes.
but
Yes.
I have until I think Monday or Tuesday, something like that. So I'm gonna send it off this week.
All right, Cailten.
I gotta get it in.
Get that registration in and get your absentee ballot in. Your voice is important. Your vote
Yes.
is important.
Yes.
Yeah. Phil, what's your current event?
Adam, you go ahead.
Oh, I'm gonna go ahead. So we're recording this on September 29th. And 2 days ago, the New York Times broke its story about having 20 years of President Trump's tax returns.
Yeah.
And let me see here's how I'm going to put it. I am so grateful that we have a leader who is so patriotic that he would pay fine American accountants so much money so that he could avoid paying fine American service members. The end.
Yeah. Nothing else to add there. Nothing else to add there.
Okay, Phil. It's your turn.
My current event is about the situation in Kentucky with Breonna Taylor, and when all of that happened, I think being newly married, it just makes me think about being at home in a bed with my wife, and that happening. Obviously, the circumstances. I mean, there's circumstances. I don't. There's a lot around going a lot around the circumstances that that make it a mushy situation, but just the whole idea that could happen, and then we don't really have if justice isn't the right word, but real closure and some acknowledgement of what happened. And it didn't really, and we really the family may have not gotten that until it became such a national story for so long. I think that has had me up a lot. It definitely had me up the night that I found out, but that has had me up at night. So that's been on my mind.
Yes. Mm.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, Phil.
Yeah.
Phil, what did you learn this week?
What I learned this week, what I learned from Cailten is something that I could really resonate with as you were sharing. Just the trusting God, and saying, I do have these fears, but I know God is going to take care of me. And so your story was a beautiful reminder of that.
Yes, I had a similar reflection of my own. And just, Cailten, how you reminded me that no matter what happens in our lives, God will use us. And even when the ways he uses us look completely different than anything we would have chosen for ourselves or anything we foresaw for ourselves, God still will use those elements of our past that seem to be unrelated. So, you are working for Fellowship of Christian Athletes in Canada. You have a music ed degree. You're still using your music, even as God has given you a mission that you probably never anticipated. So thank you for reminding all of us and for reminding me that no matter what the future holds, God is preparing me for it now.
Yeah. And with that, you mentioning that I was being trained in music, that I'm not, that's not what my job is. And sometimes I used to think, what would it look like if I was still teaching music? How life would be so different. And then I read this quote by Cailten Barron, where she said, "There are no what ifs in the will of God." And so the Lord, He knows. He is weaving our stories so beautifully. And so we don't have to worry about what if, because if you're in tune to what the Lord is calling you to do, and just letting Him lead you every day, there are no what ifs, because He has you right where He wants you to be. So.
Amen. Oh, my dear friend, my dear sister, thank you so much for spending this time with us.
Absolutely. I've enjoyed so much getting to see your faces again and to get to have this conversation.
Now we just got to get that border reopened so we can visit you in person.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. I'll be a tour guide for you, Phil, when you come too.
I'm saying it probably will be in the summer, because
Phil doesn't do well in these northern winters.
I don't, and my wife is from Haiti, so she doesn't like it when it's cold in South Florida. So
you have told her it's never cold in South Florida, right? it's relative. Like the heat here is relative. The cold, or the heat there is relative. Yes. The cold here is relative. So. Yes, absolutely. Wow. Anything else
yes.
for the good of the order, Phil?
No. I think yes. Thank you again, Cailten.
Yes. Thank you so much, Cailten. All right. With that, I will say bye for now.
Adios. We ready to start? All right, hold on. Let me moisturize my lips. I'm sorry.
Please include that in the episode. I will pay you $1 if you include, hold on, please, let me moisturize my lips.
Okay, I'm not too embarrassed to do that. I think my wife would be mad at me, but I can do that.
All right, I'll Venmo you.
All right, okay. All right.